This is one of the most shocking developments as far as Indian foreign policy is concerned. It is indeed a travesty. Israel is not engaged in war, it is engaged in genocide. It is engaged in the wanton destruction of the Palestinian community with a view to completely eradicating Palestinian aspirations. What makes no sense whatsoever is that India should partner itself with the Israelis in this absolutely horrendous venture, a venture that has been condemned by the International Court of Justice as well as by the International Criminal Court. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Should India be selling weapons to Israel which will be used to kill Palestinian civilians? Is that morally repugnant or is it morally justified? That's the key issue I should raise today with one of our foremost experts on the Middle East, former ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Oman and the United Arab Emirates, Talmiz Ahmad. Mr. Ahmad, should India be selling arms to Israel when we know they'll be used to kill Palestinian civilians and at a time when much of the world has excoriated Israel's Gaza campaign and Israel has even been accused of genocide?
This is one of the most shocking developments as far as Indian foreign policy is concerned. It is indeed a travesty. Israel is not engaged in war. It is engaged in genocide. It is engaged in the wanton destruction of the Palestinian community with a view to completely eradicating Palestinian aspirations. What makes no sense whatsoever is that India should partner itself with the Israelis in this absolutely horrendous venture, a venture that has been condemned by the International Court of Justice as well as by the International Criminal Court. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
So you can't see any justification whatsoever for India selling weapons to Israel. Is that right?
Absolutely. I see no justification. It is contrary to our national interest. It is contrary to our history. It is contrary to the moral principles that we uphold. It is contrary to our attempts to be a sort of leader of the global south. In every pattern, in terms of every paradigm, I find this event absolutely despicable and worthy of extraordinary criticism.
Let me then, in that case, Mr. Ahmed, put to you two reasons why selling arms to Israel is considered not only something that makes sense, but you could argue it's also something that is perhaps a moral requirement. First, Israel provided arms to India in 1962, in 1965, in 1971, in 1999. Israel is also said to be very closely involved advising India in Kashmir today, almost as we speak. If they can help us in our time of need, aren't we required to reciprocate in their hour of need?
I find this argument atrocious and also fallacious. Yes, I am aware of the fact that India has purchased arms from Israel at various points in its history, usually because we found ourselves totally ill prepared. There was a certain serious shortcoming with regard to our preparedness, and hence we turned and we bought weapons from large sections of the international community. None of this was an act of generosity or an act of friendship or an act of concern for India. These were all commercial deals. Actually, if you look at the record, Israel minted money from these sales, particularly in the case of Kargil. For the Israeli side to even mention that is atrocious. Kargil, India found itself totally ill prepared for Kargil. It had no idea about the utility of the Bofors guns. We had not prepared the ammunition for the Bofors gun. we found ourselves seriously short-sighted and short-handed. It is in this moment of desperation that we issued an international tender. Various companies offered their ammunition for the 155 howitzer, including South Africa. Israel also offered, and they minted money. My own information is from military sources that they sold this weapon to us at 4 times the market price. So don't mention that. But the main point I want to make to you, India was fighting an external enemy, an enemy that had committed aggression upon India. Israel is not doing any of that. Israel is participating in a wanton massacre of a civilian community. You are aware that out of the 37,000 dead, 25,000 are women and children. Is that the kind of weaponry that India should be providing for?
Okay. You're arguing that when Israel supplied weapons to India, it was a commercial deal. Israel made a lot of money out of it. It wasn't a favor that was being done to India. A tender had been raised. Israel happened to be the party that won the tender. Let me put to you a second reason why people believe there is a compulsion upon India to sell weaponry to Israel at this point of time. The drones and artillery shells India is supplying are made by a joint venture based in Hyderabad. The joint venture is between an Israeli company called Elbit Systems and the Adani Group. So if the technology is Israeli and the company is partly Israeli, how can we stop that company selling arms to Israel?
This company is located in India. It functions under Indian law. The approval to send these items outside this factory is given by the government of India and its various agencies. We don't have enough information about the various aspects of this deal. What I do know and what I have read in the public domain is that there has been a deliberate cover up with regard to the paperwork. Instead, some of the shipments that have gone have not clearly shown the end use as military purposes. There is a fudging, a deliberate fudging going on to suggest that these are dual use items. But all of us know Spain, when the ship carrying these Indian munitions arrived at Cartagena, it was Spain that stopped the supplies. And they had checked that these are munitions. If there can be so much concern about the Palestinian situation as far away as Spain in a European country, have we reduced ourselves in terms of morality to the lowest possible level?
So you're saying that in your eyes, India has betrayed itself and India's image has sunk in your eyes.
I feel that India has done itself a very great disservice. My concern is something broader and deeper. Is this a reflection of the very robust communal agenda that we have seen proliferating within our country over the last few years? Have we started seeing Israel as a kin, because Israel kills a large number of Muslims, and we ourselves seem to be in the process of denationalizing, taking a de-citizen, we are taking away the national rights and the national status of large sections of our own minority. Is this a concern? Is this the kind of affiliation that sections of our political leadership have seen with regard to Israel? I think if that is indeed the case, it is harmful as far as India is concerned, and it is harmful in terms of the standing of our country in the international community.
Now, the news that India is selling weapons and arms to Israel was confirmed by a former Israeli ambassador to India to the Israeli outlet ynetnews.com. But there's neither been a denial nor any confirmation from South Bloc or the MEA in India. How do you explain the complete, almost deafening silence from the Indian side?
I am confident that sections of our policymakers are deeply ashamed of what is going on and recognize that these acts are acts of travesty. But do recall, it is not just one Israeli source. All across the Arab world, this news of Indian supplies of weapons, even as the international community has seen on its television screens the extraordinary privation and the destruction wreaked upon the Palestinian people, on women and children particularly, they are stunned and shocked by what India is doing. They cannot recognize that this is the India of Gandhiji and Nehru and of the principles that have guided us over several decades and made us a unique country in the international system.
But let me point this out. There seems to be political acceptance right across the spectrum. Even the Congress Party or the Trinamool Congress, two parties that are in opposition to the Modi government, two parties that have been extremely vocal on NEET, on the railway accidents that have taken place, but they've had absolutely nothing to say about the fact that India is selling weaponry to Israel, which will almost certainly be used to kill innocent Palestinian civilians. So, as far as the political spectrum as India is concerned, there's silence, which suggests acquiescence and acceptance.
It is not my business to comment on the positions taken by various Indian political parties. They know best what serves their interest and what their moral principles are. But I can tell you, across the international community, in Algeria, in Jordan, in Morocco, as well as in large sections of the Arab media, there is a sense of shock.
Let me interrupt you there. I want to turn very much to how the Arab world is likely to respond to this news. And let me start by asking you, in particular, about Saudi Arabia and the UAE, two countries in which you have served as India's ambassador. In fact, I should point out, you twice served in Saudi Arabia as ambassador. Probably no Indian diplomat knows Saudi Arabia better than you. Could this news damage the relationship? Or given that the UAE has diplomatic relations with Israel, and given that not so long ago the Saudis were poised on the brink of similar ties themselves, although that is not the case now, is it unlikely that this will damage the relationship? Which of the two?
I should answer you carefully because this is an evolving situation. The relationship between India and this region goes back several centuries. It has survived numerous upheavals in the past. But I will share with you information that I have from first-hand sources. Even if the supplies of weapons from India to Israel at this juncture is not discussed in the public domain, nor are there major statements from official sources. Privately, across the official and non-official spectrum, there is a sense of shock. And there is a sense that this is unacceptable. Now, it is true that in the public domain, you don't read too much about this in certain Gulf countries. The reason is obvious. India is a major market for their petroleum. They also they by and large don't comment on developments in the country, which are internal developments in friendly countries. But I want to share with you a concern, and that is this: there is now a very clear pattern now pushing our foreign policy forward. Our foreign policy is increasingly reflecting the communal agenda at home.
Can I
For
interrupt and put this to you? Can I interrupt and put this to you? Our foreign minister on Sunday was in the UAE. He met with the UAE foreign minister. Do you believe this subject would have come up?
I would suggest that this is something the Gulf diplomacy is usually low-key, soft-spoken, courteous, and it hints rather than makes statements in your face. I cannot tell you categorically whether Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed actually agitated this matter, But you will recall just 2 years ago when Ms. Nupur Sharma made certain statements relating to the Holy Prophet, the criticism from the UAE had come to us not from official sources, but it had come from other sources, from private sources. It had been agitated at that time. And also after that, officials had entered into the public domain and had made certain statements. I will keep on ringing this alarm bell for you. And that is, please do not imagine that only because there is no robust criticism of what is happening in India, that the people in the Gulf and their leaders do not know or do not care. I think that we would be deluding ourselves if we believe that they would be comfortable with Indian weapons being used so openly, so robustly to wreak such extraordinary havoc in Gaza upon the hapless population.
What impact, Mr. Ahmed, will this have on Arab public opinion? So far, we've been talking about Arab governments, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE in particular. What about Arab public opinion? After all, up to 9 million Indians work in West Asia. Could this have worrying repercussions for them? And when you answer, I'll point out to the audience the remittances they send back are a critical contribution to the Indian economy.
I would say to you that this is going to have implications over the long term. I have emphasized the fact that our relations with the region, with the Gulf and the Arabian Peninsula, and with the Arab world in general go back several centuries. They are not shaken by specific episodes. But this particular fact that India is providing weapons that Israel is openly using to effect large scale death and destruction upon the Palestinians, it has really come as a shock. It has come as something that was totally unexpected. And I will emphasize to you, they will now see this as a pattern. You will recall that there was loose talk in the context of the COVID pandemic that we went through. There was loose remarks made by certain sections of the political establishment with regard to the Holy Prophet. During the recent election campaign, there was robust public abuse of the Muslim community as if it was being disenfranchised. All of this has been noted with great care and concern. This fact of supplying weapons to Israel at this juncture is part of this pattern. And for us to believe that you can go back to business as usual is to delude ourselves.
I'm told that in 1974, and let me add, I'm very reliably told that in 1974, when India was said to be supplying weapons to Israel, the Saudis imposed a 7 or 8 day oil embargo on India. 50 years later, when Saudi Arabia's attitude to Israel is very different compared to what it was in 1974, and when Saudi's support for Palestinians seems to be at best lukewarm, is there a danger of a similar response this time around, or is that highly unlikely?
I want to clarify the situation on the ground. The situation in many Arab capitals, but particularly in the Gulf, large sections of the Gulf, is a little different from what it was earlier. You have a new generation of leaders. They have their own priorities. They have to strengthen their royal family rule in a situation that is quite different from what their predecessors had faced. Their priorities have changed as well. If you were to ask the Saudi leadership as well as the UAE leadership, their principal concerns are the economic transformation of their country and to make their country a hub of modern technology and to bring in young people as partners in this endeavor. There, but there is no way any Arab leader anywhere from Algeria, from Morocco to Yemen can pretend that the Palestinian issue is not a priority for his citizens. If you read the literature on this subject coming in from the Arab sources, each and every country, the people have said, we define our Arabness, we define our identity on the basis of the Palestinian issue and their aspirations.
Even if Arab countries are accepting of the Indian decision to supply arms to Israel, what about Iran? Iran is an implacable foe of Israel. Iran is also a strategic partner of India. Can Tehran accept this without any impact on the relationship with India? Or are you likely to see some pushback, some disappointment, some harsh words from Tehran?
Let me clarify the situation. Iran's diplomatic experience goes back 2,500 years. Their archives are full of documents where their leaders over the centuries have grappled with very complex issues. Now, one thing the Iranians have learned, and that is not to speak out of turn. Keep your counsel with you. Speak when it suits your interest. What the Iranians are doing today, they have mobilized the axis of resistance and have given the Israelis a very formidable fight. Israeli armed forces today have a very
What
different image.
about the response to India? What about Iran's response to the news
Iran, I
that
do
India
not
is
believe,
arming Israel?
because India has made no statement in the public domain. All discussion relating to this weaponry is based on various sources that are not official. Iran, I do not believe, will say anything in public. But I want to make one more point clear to you. Iran has read the situation quite well over the last few years. They no longer see India as crucial to their national interest over the longer period, over the long term. They take under advisement whatever our leaders have to say to them, but their principal relationship today is with China and Russia and with the axis of resistance that they have put together. They don't want to be aggressive. They don't want a war in the region. They are not militarists because they don't want to be militarist, but at the same time they understand their interest very well. I think there would be a deep sense of disappointment in Tehran about this progressive approach that India has adopted to distance itself again from the values and principles that had been espoused by its great leaders in earlier decades.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
Let's come to how this news that India is selling weapons and equipment to Israel will be received in the West. But I'll ask you for shorter answers because we're coming to the end of this interview. We are supplying weapons at a time when Netanyahu, in interviews, has publicly accused the USA of deliberately slowing down weapons supply from Washington to Tel Aviv. And at a time when, as you mentioned yourself a moment ago, Spain refused permission for a ship that sailed from Chennai carrying weapons for Israel to dock at Cartagena. So how will the West view this news that India is supplying weapons? How will it go down in critical
We use
Western
the term
countries?
West. We assume a collective monolithic entity. It is not so. Many of the major countries are going through serious domestic issues. The United States and France are facing electoral challenges. There is a deep atmosphere of uncertainty with regard to how things will pan out. They are watching the situation carefully. I would say to you something much broader. The international order is in a flux. Terms like the West, after some years, will sound outdated. A new order is being shaped. Where India positions itself in this order is
But
getting
that's for
clearer
the
by the day.
future. No, that's for the future, Mr. Ahmed. Tell me
Yes,
about today. How is the news going down in major Western capitals today?
I don't think any one of them has taken this very seriously. Many of them are supplying weapons themselves to the Israelis. Many of the European countries under American pressure have become major suppliers. They are major suppliers to the Ukraine issue, which has put together the West. But they are concerned, all of them, each and every country in the West is concerned about the violence wreaked upon the Palestinians by the Israelis, number one. And number two, they would like an immediate ceasefire and humanitarian assistance. I don't think any of them will be particularly impressed with the news that India has become a major
Well,
weapons supplier to Israel.
just a moment. Let me put to you one country that may well be pleased with this news. I'm referring to the Biden administration and the United States of America. Could it help ease some of the tension that the murder for hire Panun allegations have introduced into the relationship between Delhi and Washington, both at the White House level, but also at the congressional level? There in America, could this help ease the tensions?
I think America is in the throes of extraordinary change. The run up to the election has shown that large sections of American opinion are today very deeply concerned about the violence coming out from Israel onto the Palestinian people. So, that kind of old order where there was an automatic support for Israel is now over. Large sections of the Jewish community are today deeply concerned about what Israel has been doing, and they are deeply alienated from Netanyahu. I would suggest to you that yes, there would be right wing elements which would celebrate what India is doing, but I would say to you that numerous people and groups who have seen India as the conscience of the developing world would be very deeply disappointed.
But what about the Biden administration, who have clearly got subterranean tensions with India over the murder for hire Panun allegations? Might they feel that this is a good step, and might it ease some of the tensions in the eyes of Blinken, Biden, and as well as congressional leaders who raised these issues with the Biden administration? Could it work in our interest there?
I don't think any of this is going to work in India's interest. India has to define its interest itself. We have defined it in terms of the leadership of the global south. If I have heard the Prime Minister and the External Affairs Minister, this is where we have anchored our foreign policy. Are you suggesting to me that this is all a delusion and mindless rhetoric? I,
No,
because we are,
I'm suggesting to you that the most important relationship, the single most important relationship that India has with any country is with Washington. Regardless of the talk you hear about the global south, regardless of the closeness that is expressed about Russia, the single most important relationship is with Washington. And when tensions occur there in terms of Panun, might this news help ease those tensions? That's what I'm asking.
I do not believe so. Firstly, you cannot have a relationship of an equal with the United States. The United States sees itself as a superpower. Everyone else around it are subsidiary allies of the kind that Wellesley put together in India, the subsidiary ally. To the extent that you serve Washington's purpose, you are regarded as one of us. The minute you do something that does not serve American interest, You are discarded. So
Okay.
if India believes, or anyone in India believes, that we have in the United States a crucial ally, they are completely misguided and delusional.
It's been speculated, in fact, it is being speculated in the papers today as well, that Prime Minister Modi may not attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Kazakhstan next week. Could there be a link between this news and the decision to supply arms to Israel? After all, just as selling weapons to Israel could win US approval, it will upset or annoy most of the members of the SCO and possibly Russia and the Central Asian Muslim countries in particular. Is that one reason why Mr. Modi is keeping away from the SCO?
It's not for me to speculate about his intentions and the reasoning behind them, but I believe that India should be an active role player in BRICS, in the SCO, in the Indian Ocean Rim Association, as well as various other groupings of which we are members. We should not pick and choose between them.
No, but that's a different question. I didn't ask you that question. I'm saying, is there a link between the decision to
I
supply
cannot
arms to
answer
Israel?
that because I don't have the facts. My answer was, as a diplomat, as a former diplomat, what is in India's interest? India's interest lies in the membership of the multiplicity of organizations and to have our voice heard. But everything that we do in terms of diplomacy has to be guided by a broader vision. What I sense many times is that we are reactive, we are ad hoc, we are short term. I have missed a kind of broader vision that would guide our diplomacy forward.
Finally, Mr. Ahmad, let me ask you a question about the domestic impact of this decision to sell arms to Israel, which will be used almost certainly to kill innocent Palestinian civilians. Should a democracy with a 200 million Muslim population of citizens, the third largest Muslim population in the world, sell weapons knowing that they will be used to kill Palestinian Muslims? Is there what I might call a domestic moral issue here?
I would like to say this to you very emphatically. We buy this agenda of the communalists in India of a divide between Hindus and Muslims. The war against communalism is being waged by large sections of the Hindu community. People who believe in India, in the larger patterns of India's history, in its eclectic approach, in its accommodative approach, in its multicultural respect for multicultural order. We should not deem it that anything that happens, oh, the Muslims are doing this, or this is going to impact on the
That's not
Muslims.
the question I asked. Forgive
The
me, I'm
answer, no,
interrupting.
let
But
me
that's
answer
not the
your
question
question.
I asked.
The question is this: their voice against the communal agenda in India has been raised by large sections of the Hindu community. They are the ones who voted against
Can I interrupt?
BJP
Can I
candidate.
interrupt? The question is a simple one. Should a democratic country where 14.3% of the population is Muslim, 200 million people, the third biggest Muslim population in the world, should that country be selling weapons to Israel knowing that those weapons will be used to kill innocent Muslim Palestinians? That's the question I'm asking.
The question you have asked needs to be answered in a much broader sense than the way you have put it. I have sensed, and this is a matter of concern for me personally, that the government of the day and sections of its top leadership have no sensitivity whatsoever with regard to the interests and concerns of the Muslim community. Very often, I noted with great concern and indeed embarrassment and shame the direct attacks upon Muslims as if they are aliens in their own country. Please recall that all Muslims here are actually citizens of our country. They have played a major role in the freedom struggle. They have played a major role in the development of our country and in the defense of our country. Therefore, this kind of communalization approach is not going to serve any national interest. I would say to you that it is not a Hindu-Muslim issue. The Hindus are not collectively
And
a
I'm not
communal
making it a
entity.
Hindu-Muslim issue. I'm making it a moral issue. But never mind, I can understand your reluctance to answer it. I can understand that this is an awkward question. I'm grateful to you, Mr. Ahmad, for making time. I'm particularly grateful to you for pointing out how India's decision to sell weapons to Israel will be received by Arab countries. And even if there are no public protests, how Arab public opinion will perceive it and what the impact on our relationship will be. I thank you for making time for me. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. I wish you all the best.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.